everyone, my name is Doc and I am one of the owners and co-founders of the Hood Collective, and today we are going to be talking about how to design a website for your cannabis business for cheap. I hope the word cheap has grabbed your attention. What I mean by cheap is not bargain basement. It doesn't mean that you don't have to make some investment, and we certainly don't mean or want, from your perspective, something that looks cheap. We're talking about how can you make an effective, good-looking, professional website without spending thousands and thousands of dollars. Certainly not spending $10,000, $20,000. Now, first of all, we're not talking about a business that needs an online platform where their users can sign in, where you can make purchases, where like not just, I don't mean just a simple store, but like you can be a member and you can sign in and it's a platform or something that's some kind of app where you're a member, you know, something with a lot of complexity like that. Well, it's going to be expensive, and it's essential that you invest in it because your whole business is built around the success of this website functioning properly. That's not what we're talking about. So what are we talking about? Like I said, we're talking about the small to medium-sized business that needs a small but professional and effective website. And you will see, if you go to, a web designer that just specializes in web design but maybe isn't specializing in cannabis, they might charge $5,000, $10,000. They might charge $5,000 for just a landing page, for the most basic functionality of a website that just has hello and about us and here are some pictures, right? You shouldn't be spending 5 figures, or you shouldn't even be spending 5,000 on such a simple website. So how can you do it without spending that much money but still be professional? Number one, avoid WordPress. I know WordPress is kind of the industry standard, but it's a mess. Anyone that has dealt with building on WordPress knows it's like you have a Frankenstein very quickly that can't be updated, that like the plugins are out of date, that like within 6 months you're like, oh no, what's happening? I don't know what to do, and you have no choice but go back to the professional. It's a hassle and it's more expensive. I recommend building your site on Wix, although there's some other options like a Squarespace or something, but I especially prefer Wix because it's very versatile without being too versatile, meaning that like you can make your website your own. Our website is built on Wix, and you go to it and people say, whoa, that was a Wix site? Yeah, it's not just a template. If you have a designer that knows what they're doing, they can make something really cool, but it's much easier, one, for us to build. It's much easier for you to maintain it, and because it was easier for us to build, it's cheaper for you to buy. So you get a cheaper website that is easier for us to build and easier for you to maintain in the future. That's a win-win-win. And so that's number one, is to go through Wix. Number two is to whatever platform you're using, and in some cases you need some bit of functionality that WordPress can do that Wix can't. It's not often, but sometimes there is something. You need a specific plugin that's going to work with a specific thing that you need, right? Sometimes you can't avoid WordPress, and sometimes you're just coming from like, hey, I've used WordPress for 20 years and I don't want to change. So we get it. We build WordPress sites too. It is more expensive, but still a WordPress site is not going to cost us $5,000 to $10,000 to build. Whereas it might if you go to just a standard web design company. And so again, number one of how to reduce the cost of a WordPress site and a Wix site is really focus on what are the essentials that you need. It's like people get caught up in like, oh, what if we have a store locator, and what if we have like, for example, a grow will be like, oh, we need a store locator so that you can find where you are. Well, why are people like, people aren't going to grow websites to then be like, oh, cool, they sell it in this dispensary that's like 10 blocks from my, well, there's the 3 block one and the 5 block. Like, people aren't making their purchasing decisions because they found a map on a website showing where they can buy the flower that they can get at any dispensary, right? People aren't making that decision. So that it seems like, oh, why wouldn't you want that store locator on your shop? But really, it's not going to turn into sales. And so it's an extra cost that isn't going to lead to anything. You know, if anything, just make it a list, right? A list is easy to update, and like having the map looks visually cool, but it doesn't necessarily help, you know, because again, people are like, when they're making that search, when they've stumbled upon your shop or your website for your grow, they're still far away from going, they're not immediately going to the shop. Because if they were, they looked for dispensary near me and you didn't rank anywhere close to the top. So be realistic about what your website is for, what it will be effective at and what it won't be effective at, and only use those things that you really need and can really be effective. And like, yes, most businesses, wherever you are in the industry, you need that website to look professional for people. If they're doing a Google search to see if you're legit, then you want a nice website. But often that's all it is we need something to look legit. And so you want something that is simple and looks good. And if you go to a web designer that isn't just trying to gouge you for money, and you're like, hey, it doesn't need to be complex, it can be simple, we just want it to look good, then it's going to be so much cheaper. And when you come to us, we're going to say, yeah, that's super easy. The number one thing that you need to bear in mind if you want your website to look good, be cheap, and be effective, the cheap, let's leave out the cheap. If you want it to look good and be effective, is the photos on your website. And so whether you're getting the photos, you're hiring a professional to get the photos, you're hiring us to get the photos, that is a separate expense that goes into the website. But that's the most important part about it. Everything else about it is super easy. It's so easy to make a professional website. You can make the nicest, best website, and if you have shitty phone photos on the website, it's going to be a shitty website, no matter how much you spend on it, right? But if you have, like, it's really hard to make a bad website. You know, if you're hiring a professional, it's going to be good. And again, if you're focused on making it simple and clean and effective, invest that money in your photos, because that's the most important aspect of it, you know, and maybe a video, maybe, you know, not necessarily, maybe. And then, you know, you do that, you have good visuals, then everything else is super easy. And if you've invested in pictures and maybe video, you can use that in other ways. You can use it on your social. You can use it in your brochures. You could, you know, you're paying for an asset that isn't only for the website. So that's my advice. It's very simple. Get a Wix website, focus on the images, the photos, and you know, if you want to know, like, I'll just tell it, like, our Wix websites start, like, you can get a landing page for $1,500. A basic full website that has, you know, what every normal website would have is going to be about $2,500 on Wix, maybe even cheaper, depending on the parameters. And then, you know, invest the rest of that money that you're saving, because you're not spending $5,000 or $10,000 on the images. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps save you money. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment or go to our website and you can reach out there. And thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you again soon.